Hello and welcome to All Four Wins Football. It is episode 50, if you would believe it, of Lower League Lingo. It doesn't seem that long ago that we kicked this off, but it is. And we're going to be celebrating that, talking all things Women's FA Cup and, of course, a little bit of a rundown of Tier 5 as well. So join us after this. Yes, hello. We are loads to talk about this evening. And so we're going to get pretty much straight into it. We will say our hellos first of all. Stuart, lovely to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
Struggling to realise where the unmute button is, but yes, I'm very, very well, thank you. Considerably poorer after a trip to Smith's for the kids' Christmas presents.
Understandably so. And Gaza, lovely to have you on the show again as well. How are you, sir?
Yes, very well, thank you. I think it says a lot about me that Smith's in my head was WH Smith's and not the toy store. I was like, oh, I'd love to go and spend loads of money. But it's not Smith's anymore, is it? It's called something else. But yeah, that's where my childless brain went.
Woolworths is where you really want it. That's the one that I miss. God bless Woolworths. What a place it was. Right, well, we are going to kick off with the FA Cup and just sort of run through a few of the games and results and the draw effectively on that. So then we'll move into the Tier 5 games. So the big ones, I suppose, if we were to pull out two matches from the draw. First of all, Bournemouth beating Fulham 5-0. Now, we said that this was potentially a rival game that could have been put onto the telly box. And a 5-0 drubbing from Bournemouth, I don't know if we necessarily felt it would go that particular way, but so it did. Bournemouth winning 5-0, and their reward is a home draw against leaders of the WSL at this moment in time, Manchester City, which will be quite something. And keeping Manchester very much in the focus, Burnley, who did incredibly well also, they won 7-0 against Peterborough from Tier 4. They have got Manchester United away. So two big games there, Bournemouth City, Burnley Man United. Stu, talk to us a little bit about, first of all, those results. Like I say, a 5-0 and a 7-0, they were very, very dominant. But, I mean, there'll be people now fully expecting that to be exactly the same, but the other way around with the WSL sides doing that to them.
You summed it up perfectly. Both Bournemouth and Burnley are flying high, and you would argue that they are a summer transfer window away from being WSL2 level sides, to be honest. They're both doing very well in their divisions. I think in each case they probably only have maybe one and a half challengers. So it's not a foregone conclusion in either division, but they are very strong. I think they will probably relish the test of a big side. Both teams have kind of had it their own way in their divisions, Bournemouth especially over the last few years. Very rarely tasting defeat. So they will want to know where they're at. So I think if they've got the real aspirations of promotion, which they do, it'll be a really good sort of tool for measuring whereabouts they are in their development. The sides that lost, again, they're both good teams, but they were punching up a little bit. And from the same token, like you said, it's their gauge. Like Steve J, manager of Fulham, he'll be looking at that going, right, okay, so that we're top of our division, or we're top two of our division. This is what we need to do as, when, and if we can get promoted. This is the level that we need to aspire to. So it's a good measure of the squads. And while they're probably fully aware, the players that would form the basis of their squad, should they be promoted, it will perhaps show the players that maybe aren't quite at that level at this point.
No, I think that's fairly fair. To be fair, I can't believe we used the word fair 3 times in a sentence there. That's pretty good. Gareth, throw this over to you. It was intriguing before we came on to the show. You mentioned how they would feel about getting these, because there's teams definitely that you would have really wanted. I mean, there's 4 tier 4 sides, for example. There are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tier 3 sides. So, all of those were potential matches that could have happened. And it's a big payday, of course, if you can just nick through one more round. So, do you think Burnley will be quite content travelling to LSB? Do you think Bournemouth will be quite happy to be hosting Man City in terms of, potentially getting a good crowd in?
Yes, I'm curious on this actually, because the reason is obviously when you go into the kind of draw, there's always 2 things in your mind, isn't there? There's that tie that means you can progress from the competition or through the competition. In which case, Manchester United and Manchester City for Bournemouth and Burnley, Burnley and Bournemouth respectively, are not the ties they would have wanted. But there's also that sense of you get to the 4th round, and then that's when the big teams come in, and can you get rewarded? I think both of these sides will look at the FA Cup as a sense of, let's try and get as far as we can. It's not going to be on their kind of coming into the season, we want to win the FA Cup. It's not on going to kind of be on any WNL, WSL2, probably not either. It's only going to be on a select group of teams' radars as a realistic target at the end of the season. But it would be a get as far as we can. And I think if you get as far as you can and you lose against Man United or Man City, then that's absolutely perfectly acceptable. But would you rather do that in round 5 where the prize pot is bigger? But then that being said, in terms of what the prize pot is, does an extra £20,000 touch the sides of what Burnley's budget is? I don't know. So yeah, I'm genuinely curious as to what the feeling is in those camps about this draw. For example, I think we'll kind of get on to these 2 sides later, but York City beat Altrincham 3-0, and they progressed, and Chatham Town beat Sutton United 3-0, and they progressed, and they've been drawn against each other. And I, again, don't know how those 2 sides are going to feel, because that's an absolutely fantastic draw for both sides if they win. And if they lose that game, then that's a real kick in the teeth, because you got to the 4th round and you didn't quite get one of the bigger sides. You could. This is almost like, this is what you could have won on a game show where they pull the doors back and there's your speedboat and you're going away with a blender. But if you win, then that's absolutely fantastic, because the money that you bring in is so huge. And I kind of wonder where Burnley and Bournemouth are with that. Is how big is that game for them? How big is it playing United? How big is it playing City? I know that I'm not hugely familiar with Bournemouth side. I know there are players in Burnley's team that have played in WSL, will have played against Manchester United before, that will be used to those kinds of bigger games. Will have played at if you take Kirsty Lavelle, for example, the Burnley goalkeeper, used to play for Leicester, won the championship with Leicester, has played regularly at the King Power Stadium. So the occasion isn't going to feel, it's going to be a big occasion, but it's not going to feel like the biggest of occasions for them. It's not like a once in a lifetime career opportunity like it would be for York or Chatham, for example. So yeah, I think maybe now that I've been involved in football and in the kind of discussions that happen, I'm really interested. I think it's a fantastic tie for the players. I think when those names come out as players, you're absolutely buzzing. You want to go and test yourself against the best, and it's a game to relish in a sense, as long as it doesn't become. I don't think that come the end of the game, Peterborough were relishing that game against Burnley, whereas they could really have gone at the start. We're flying in tier 4, they're flying in tier 3. They are grinding out results. Let's go and see what we can do. Can we make it difficult for them? Can we make it tricky for them? The answer was no. They got beat 7-0. I think what those games done is it really showed the gap. We always mention this, the gap between the top of tier 5 and the top of tier 4 being relatively bridgeable, but then the gap between top of tier 4 and top of tier 3 is massive in terms of both quality and budget as well. Even the top end budgets in tier 4 are not going to be competing with the likes of Burnley, and I imagine not competing with the likes of Bournemouth either. But just really interesting. And I think Bournemouth hosting City, they should make that a big occasion. I'm hoping that will be at the Vitality, because it brings opportunity. One thing I don't know in the sense of Burnley is, I was trying to bring up the rules, but I can't find them in my emails. I don't know if revenue is split at this stage. I know with the FA Cup, different rules come in at different stages of the competition. Revenue wasn't split in the early rounds. Having never been involved in a side that's got this far, I don't know if it is here, or if it does come in at all when that comes in. I may try and have a look in advance of our next FA Cup show and kind of touch on it. But I've spoken a lot about just 3 fixtures, so I'll move on.
Well, I'm sure that we will hunt and find that. In fact, I've got a funny feeling that Stu's already on the case by the way that he was typing away there. But we'll interrupt him briefly, because obviously we brought up Burnley and Bournemouth there because they had potentially the 2 biggest ties. But you've also got West Brom and Hull. Now, West Brom did very well. They won 3-0 against Tier 4 Leeds, while Hull just got past Mancunian Unity 2-1. Of course, Mancunian Unity, one of the Tier 5 sides that ended up losing at the weekend. They've both got big games. West Bromwich Albion at home, they've drawn Everton, of course, WSL side as well. And indeed, the only side to beat Chelsea in about 100 years, it feels. So quite a big thing for them. And also you've got Hull against Birmingham, which is, again, for them, quite a good one, a WSL 2 side. But Hull, of course, as we just said, struggled a little bit against Mancunian Unity. For those two, it's not quite the level of getting a Man United and a Man City, but they're still pretty big names. Stu, do you think West Brom and Hull will be quite happy with home games, bringing that level of side to them, or not?
Yeah. I think every club, especially the National League clubs, to a degree, the Barclays WSL2 clubs, they want the easiest possible tie to get the money in the bank. Unquestionably. What they all want is they want to play Chelsea, Man City, Man United, Arsenal in the final. That's when they want to play. That's when they want their glamour tie. Outside of that, they want the opposition where they have the best opportunity and odds to get a result. It's as simple as that. Massively so with clubs that, for example, Chatham Town, they will want to get to the next round, and when they do get to the next round, they're going to want the most winnable likely tie, because you want to go as far as you can. And in short answer to your question, yes, the home ties, they give you more money because you get the gate receipts as well. So if you can get that sort of winnable tie with a recognisable name, then that's the absolute win. Oddly, when I was being someone involved with Moneyfields, when we had our FA Cup run a couple of years ago, we had what wasn't an easy run to the fourth round, but others would argue that we were probably favourites in each tie. When we got to the fourth round, we played London City Lionesses, and we were in a position where we were like, brilliant, it'd be fantastic to get a big glamour tie against a really recognisable club. But to most people in and around us, the team that we beat in the round prior was Millwall, and that was the bigger name for most, because it's who they'd more likely have heard of. But for us, we were like, okay, out of all of the clubs that we could play, London City Lionesses was quite a good one. We knew we were up against it. We lost 4-0, conceding a goal just before half time, after objectively having a lot of the sort of more positive play in the first half. But they had Championship, as it was then, WSL2 quality. So they were able just to be quite ruthless. Their first big chance of the game, added time, boom, 1-0 up. Boom, boom, boom. 3 more goals at the beginning of the second half. And then we had a really good end to the game. Granted, that might be because the game was won effectively their end, so they could lower the gear down to sort of third gear a little bit, perhaps. But we put on a really good show. If you watched it on the stream, you would have been really entertained. It was a really good outcome for us. So while we would have loved to have had them at home so we could get a few more sort of people in, yeah, it's getting those. If you can get a club that you can put in a good show, that's obviously going to be really important. And let's face it, you don't want to get a heavy defeat in that, do you? Really? So yeah, they'll be hoping for a similar experience we had at Moneyfields. Put in short, they'll want to come away with it thinking, right, do you know what, we performed admirably,
for sure,
and made some money along the way.
Well, exactly, and we have the answer. Both Gareth and I have managed to find it. Gareth, I will admit, was slightly quicker than me. So there we go. Congratulations, Gareth. You're still the fastest finger in the West. But of course, the gate is split between both sides from the fourth round onwards. So
yeah,
you argue Burnley probably happier there.
So they take out all the costs of gate attendants, turnstile operators, stewards, policing, floodlighting, first aiders, and any cost relating to the clearing of snow and water. Yeah, I'm sure the clubs all report that absolutely on the nose.
But still, there's a chance, and something's better than nothing, isn't it? So there is that. And the losers, of course, in the next round, in the fourth round, will get £13,000 for their trouble, which, if you were to add up the exit fees in round 1, 2, and 3, it comes to just £500 more altogether. Now, obviously, you couldn't get that because you would have to be knocked out 3 times. But again, the point I'm making is it's quite a big amount of money still to receive. So it's not too shabby at all. Right, well, there we go. They are the main ones there. There's one more tier 3 fixture that we should probably look at, and they will be, you would imagine, sides that are quite content with this. Oxford United, they were 2-1 winners over Plymouth, another tier 3 side, and Middlesbrough defeated Fylde 3-0. AFC Fylde of tier 5, another one of those that has fallen by the wayside. Oxford against Middlesbrough, Gareth, you'd think that would be, again, you were talking about Chatham and York, and we will get to that one in just a second, but again, for the 2 tier 3 sides, I feel like, and we can throw Chatham and York in this one as well, because they did do very well. Chatham, as you said, beating Sutton United, York beating Altrincham 3-0, both teams winning that. Altrincham, the lowest side in the competition in tier 6. But as much as you say that, I feel like for me, you'd be, obviously at the end of the game, it's going to be rubbish, but that's a bit like going to the FA Cup final, isn't it? Everybody feels like they've got a chance to win, and as soon as they lose, it's terrible. If they win, it's amazing. That's the nature of the cup. I suppose for me, the big thing there is, if you're Burnley and Bournemouth, you've kind of now got to sit there and go through the motions of, well, we could do it, but the chances are we're not gonna. We're gonna have to, sort of just try and enjoy the experience. Whereas these 4 teams genuinely have a great opportunity of going on winning the round, which will get them another £54,000, and make it through to the next round, which of course is £20,000 if they go out there. So for these sides, especially Chatham and York, that's huge.
Oh yeah, it's massive. That for the side that wins, they will get, like you say, £56,000 this time, £20,000 if they lose in the next round. There's no guarantee they do that. But that's an entire year's budget. That I don't know what the budgets are of these sides, but I don't imagine that they're going to be much beyond the ballpark of £75,000. That, from my understanding, is the middle of the road budget for a tier 4 side, or rather than budget, the spend. So I don't quite know where their budgets will be in terms of that. I wouldn't be surprised they're on the lower end of the divisions. There are some big clubs in tier 4 with some big spending power. Leeds United, for example, that can maybe inflate the budgets, the sort of averages a little bit. Their FA Cup runs this season they will be in profit for the year, and whoever wins, their budget for next season is sorted. So, it is a genuinely enormous amount of money for clubs, especially those two clubs. York have a men's side in the National League, who are also pushing for promotion. So, but they're not going to be back. They're not backed by Premier League sides. Burnley and Bournemouth are backed by Premier League sides. The clubs themselves have money to be able to give healthy budgets to those sides. Middlesbrough do as well, but not a Premier League side, but in the well-established side. Oxford, a well-established side, but again, money between the Premier League and League One is vast. But yeah, for Chatham and York, it's huge. Like I say, it will fund their whole season this season. It will probably fund a good chunk of next season on top of that, especially the side that wins. It's massive, but it's so easy to get drawn into the money of the FA Cup, money of the FA Cup. This will be, for whichever one of those sides wins it, it's going to be a genuinely historical moment, and those players will be, you suspect, for a good period of time, the history makers at their club. Either history makers, and that record could stand for many years. It's we talk of the luck of the draw, and I think all of us here can sit and go, we had a slightly kinder draw in the rounds where we went out there. Maybe we could still be in at this point. But that's the magic of the cup, isn't it? That is the joy of club football. And hey, if we'd drawn aside from whichever league but below and had come through it, then it would be absolutely incredible. So for those 4 sides, they've got huge opportunities now to go and be a group of players that makes history for their club. And we do it we all play football to win football matches and win trophies, but we also do it to make a difference and think about the impact that will have on the community as well, particularly for kind of if there are junior sections attached to them. And I don't know if Oxford or Middlesbrough have ETCs at all, but if there's junior sections there as well, that's going to be massive for them. I really hope that the junior sections become part of that day. I would really love it if York, and I'm not sure which way around the draw is, York and
Chatham at home, York away.
Middlesbrough put on the coaches. I hope they put some more coaches on to help fans get down there, because they are hefty drives from Middlesbrough to Oxford and from York to Kent. They're long drives. So I hope that the clubs go all out to try and make it as massive an occasion as possible, because if you go on a long drive and there's a group of fans there, it really does make a difference. Even in the leagues, when you're going on a 4-hour trip from the northwest to the northeast, and there's 10 or 12 fans that have made the trip with you, it's huge. And if they can kind of get a load of fans on the coach as well and make a massive day of it, then that's going to be massive. So yeah, kudos to all 4 of them, particularly Chatham and York. I think this will absolutely change their season, potentially put them in a really good position for next season as well.
No, I agree. And of course, there are two other Tier 4 sides that have made it through. Swindon, the land of my birth, managing to get past Leafield, not land of my birth, 3-2 with an away win there. Swindon doing incredibly well. They've got an away match at Charlton for their troubles, and London Bees have managed to defeat I had it a minute ago, 3-2 Dartford, I think it was. That's right, away to Dartford. They won. It was another Tier 5 side. So 2 Tier 4 teams. London Bees will be bringing Liverpool down south, which is, again, a very big tie for them. Now, we played London Bees, Stevenage did, in a pre-season friendly. And where London Bees are at, it's the Hive, which is where Barnet play. And London Bees have got a little pitch that's a little Astro with a little stand to the side. I can't imagine they're going to be playing on said tiny Astro turf stand. You would imagine they would be petitioning to see if they can put that on in the main stadium of the Hive. And I would say that would be a good shout for them if they could. I don't know that Liverpool will bring lots and lots and lots of fans down, or that maybe London Bees would get that many people in to come and watch them. I don't know. But again, when you're talking about an event, Stu, that's the sort of thing you'd want for London Bees there, isn't it? To have the opportunity to play in the main stadium rather than just to the side of it.
Yes, or would they want that? It's the old sort of cliche that actually then everyone's on an alien pitch that they're not used to, and maybe they do want to bring them to this little the small Astro with the crowd almost sort of touching distance of the players. Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to see it. I know that Liverpool a few years, probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, they played Chichester City. Their ground was sort of a bit bigger. It's not a caged area like London Bees is, but it was the players were sort of touching distance from the fans, and they're all stood around the sort of the barrier. Let's see that. Let's see it. Let's go for it. These players. I just
wonder if there's rules on that, because it's just one stand. You've then got 3 sides that I don't think people can stand on, but because it's just one side, I don't know that they would have the capacity.
They've only got one stand there. That's interesting, because that's even.
I think the one I went to, I mean, providing that's the one they usually play on, which my understanding was that it is. They've got one stand that goes across, and then it's defence, because basically it's a load of other community pitches and things that would be used. So, yeah, it's just fences all the way. They've got the turnstile, they've got that. They didn't have anywhere for the press to sit, which I think is also something that you have to go into there. So again, I think they'll have to put it on another ground. But
as someone that's had a look through the regulations, it's a hefty document, so I can't recall all of it, but I know that there's a specific percentage of the ground that must be covered. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I've never been there, so I don't know. But I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
It has to fit the ground grading criteria for Tier 3 of the Women's Football Pyramid. So if it matches the ground grading for Tier 3, and I believe B's are Tier 4 now, am I right? Then who knows? So yeah, it has to be Category C, which is slightly more. So I'm not sure what the difference is between a Category D and a Category C. Obviously, the actual main stadium on the Hive would meet that, but yeah, whether the other one doesn't or not, it does include things like a certain percentage of seats on the cover, certain facilities for various different things and things as well. So, yes.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very interesting one, that's for sure. But I'm sure we'll find out more about it. They, of course, are the ties that will include these teams from the lower leagues. Now, obviously, as we said, round 3 is over. We have not mentioned some of the teams. Royston from Tier 5 travelled to Southampton, and it wasn't the best day for them, losing 10-0, but they would have enjoyed the experience prior to the match, you would imagine. what else we have? Portchester. Stu, you can give us a little bit on that one, I believe. Ipswich winning 5-0 away to Portchester. Was that a good game? I understand you was in attendance.
Yeah, it was a good game. Ultimately, it was sort of good for sort of very sort of differing reasons. Portchester have been doing a lot of really good things behind the scenes with regards to their matchday experience and building a fan base across their men's and women's teams. So it's not unusual for them to get good crowds that would be the envy of women's teams, sort of 2-3 tiers above them. From a footballing perspective, Portchester did well in a sense of they kept the score down, they made it difficult. It was a heavy grass pitch, so it wasn't easy for Ipswich to play on. I don't know what, obviously at this level, you're not getting public stats to do with possession, but Ipswich were heavily in control for the whole match. But Portchester 2-0 down at half time with an early goal in the game and an early goal in the half and a late goal in the half. And it was only sort of really the third goal, so about 10 minutes into the second. Well, don't quote me on that, but the third goal that sort of killed the tie off. But prior to that, it was a really good competitive match where Portchester made it difficult because, let's face it, Ipswich would have probably wanted to go into half time sort of 4-5-0 up and stroll the second half, but they couldn't. There was some really good goalkeeping, some really resolute defending. Portchester were well organised and made it really difficult, but ultimately they were a class apart. You've got a tier 2 side against a tier 5 side, so there's no disrespect. The match went on par in that sense, but Portchester will be happy with their run. They'll be pleased with the impact that it had on sort of the community, and again, they'll be well happy with the money from a tier 5 side. They've gone and got prize money that they will be spending, and with the signing of Kim Fuller, a top class National League winger, they clearly are spending that FA Cup money because they'll want promotion, and they haven't had it all their own way in the division. And if they want to get promoted, realistically, they need to go and win every single game between now and the end of the year, because it's still a competitive division they're in, and they'll be desperate to make it to our National League shows and not our Tier 5 shows.
For sure, I couldn't agree more on that one. And to be fair, Portchester with a good win to get to that round in the first place against Worthing. So good job from them. Lewis, tier 3 Lewis even, with a loss over Crystal Palace. Only 1-0 though, so that was very close. Sunderland defeated Derby 5-1. Liverpool Sheds were beaten by Newcastle 4-0. We mentioned Birmingham earlier. They beat Sporting Cowser 6-0. Hence why no John Foster tonight. He was in mourning for that particular result. The last result to talk about really is, of course, the one that was on TV. Wolves 1, Nottingham Forest 2. Gareth, you were vociferous in not really wanting Wolves to be on the telly again. They were. Did you see any of it? And were you content with the game? Because I did see it, and I thought actually a good advert for the two leagues in a way.
I did not, because I was on my way to meet a WNL consultant and have a meeting regarding that. So I didn't get a chance to catch any of it. I understand. I've been told that Forest move the ball fantastically well, but they're a great football inside. I think what it shows is, considering the two of them were the two top sides in the division last year, it shows the power of a good transfer window, doesn't it? I think, both Burnley, Wolves, Bournemouth, whoever challenges to go up from the two WNL Premier Divisions will be looking at Forest and thinking that's the kind of transfer window over the summer that we need. I think Portsmouth have gone up, and are playing well, but Forest are, they're currently sit fifth in the league, so they're relatively comfortable at the midway point, and that's a blueprint for those other sides with a similar budget to be able to follow. So yeah, I think it worked out to be a good game in the end. I think it's a fab opportunity for that. I just think it would have been nice to showcase some other games. In hindsight, yeah, maybe a 2-1 victory for Forest over Wolves was a slightly better one than a one-sided victory for Bournemouth or for Burnley. But yeah, I'll hold my hands up and say that it was a good pick for TV. I do suspect now that we are getting into the realm. I think we were in the realm last time where the big teams are going to be on TV. We are now in that side where the big teams are going to be on TV. So as lovely as it would be for a Chatham versus York to be televised, I think we are going to see the likes of Bournemouth, City, Arsenal, Aston Villa, maybe United, Burnley, Spurs versus Leicester. Those kinds of ties more likely to be the ones picked for TV because they're going to be at the facilities where they can get the massive vans and get all the fancy setup in and be able to wheel out the full production as though it's second nature. So so I think that they're likely to be some of the picks. I don't know how many picks there are in the fourth round. I imagine there'll be a few.
No, me neither. But I would imagine you're quite right with the ones that you said. They are the ones I would have certainly gone between. And those ties are played on January the 17th and 18th. So plenty to look forward to. A whole month away, though. So there we go. Only 37 minutes discussing the FA Cup. So as far as Tier 5 goes, as far as we're concerned, we're not going to go mad on them this week. But I was very keen to finish the year having seen the Tier 5 tables because there has been some changes and there has been a few games played across them all. So it's very good for us to end our lower league lingo shows with the Tier 5 tables because then everybody can see where these teams are. Not that you couldn't anyway. I'm sure you're more than capable of finding this information if you were really wanting to. But for the purposes of our show being all equal, that's what we would like to do. So we're going to throw out the Midlands ones very quickly because again, as we mentioned, John Foster is not here, so it makes it a little bit easier because we might have to have a big long chat about it, but we will talk a little bit about these games. And you will see Redditch Borough have made it to the top of I believe it's the West. Yeah, West Midlands. 2 games played more than Shifnal Town, 2 points clear as well. But you would imagine that Shifnal, with their 0 games lost, are likely to find themselves up in that top spot again soon. Lie Town still not beaten, but those 4 draws really proving costly at the moment. 5 points off of Redditch Borough, and that will, I would imagine, be a bit of a grumble for them. Looking a little bit further down, Coventry Sphinx only played the 7 games, so they will potentially feel they have got a shout as well of getting themselves up in those top spaces. Down at the bottom, you've got Camden Court and Owlchurch with 3 and 4 points. Burton Albion looking a little bit on the dangerous side, while Hednesford sort of on the edge there. But you would look at that goal difference and you would probably think that you're looking at any 2 from Burton, Owlchurch and Camden Court. But who knows? I could be entirely wrong. It did happen once. And then we have got one more to look at, and then we'll be able to send it over to Stu for his little roundup. The East Midlands, much easier, only 9 teams. Chesterfield absolutely nailing it at the moment at the top of their division, 26 points, 4 points clear of Loughborough Foxes, and it really looks like it's between those 2. There will be another game, I think, to be played between Chesterfield and Loughborough, so that one could be pivotal in terms of the destination of that title, but that is, of course, working on the theory that both sides match each other for the foreseeable. SJR Workshop, They've got the least amount of games played in the bottom 3 and 4 there, but they would still have to get these 4 points in order to climb out of the relegation zone. Meanwhile, Wellingborough Town, well, it's not looking very good for them. Probably down and out as we speak there. A lot going on in the middle of the table there, but nothing to write home about. So there we go. That was the Midlands, and that is 25% of our Tier 5 roundup. Great news. We're absolutely smashing it. Now, we are going to go over to John, not to John because he's not here. I've already said that. But we are going to go to Mr. Stu, who's going to talk us through the Southwest regional. We'll probably get Stu to also run through the Southern as well. So I know that he needs to drop out. And then I'll just leave Gareth and I to mop up any bits that we need to for the North and the South, if need be. So there we go. There is the Southwest for you, Stu. So there we go. Take it away.
Well, as you can see, it's all nicely congested up at the top, with sort of forest green looking quite happy. What's the expression about a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush? But when you look at 3 games in hand, they're going to think, right, if we can't get 3 points out of these 3 games, then, well, to be fair, they don't necessarily deserve it. But Gloucester City, again, well, sorry, I feel a bit bad. I'm kind of stating a little bit of the obvious, to be honest, but there hasn't been a lot of football played in these divisions given the weather recently. But again, they'll be looking above them and thinking, do you know what, we quite fancy ourselves, and they're a good up and coming club that's very well organised. So I could see them looking to kind of close that gap. Torquay United, I often check online and they're signing players left, right, centre, and some players of sort of good Tier 4 stock as well. And I think they'll be wanting to get a few games played. But it's always very difficult to make any sweeping statements when you've got clubs that have that many games in hand, and it could completely turn this table upside down. But I think Forest Green, like I said, they're going to be the happiest team in that division probably going into Christmas. But I know Sherborne Town have been signing also some very good quality players, especially in Aaron Bloomfield and Molly Gladwell, both formerly of AFC Bournemouth, both winning the division in the 4th tier and playing significant roles in doing so. So they probably had a little bit of a slow start, obviously with the 3 defeats on there, but that Forest Green Rovers Sherborne Town tie is going to be a very good little one. So yeah, one to look at in the new year.
Certainly is. I mean, it's not looking great for Bishop's Lydiard down there either, but fingers crossed they manage to put a little something out of the fire. Right, on to the next one for you, which is, of course, the Southern Regional. There we go. So the Southern region, Wycombe Wanderers, just above the Winchester City Flyers, but it feels like it's Wycombe that's flying there, Stu.
Very good, very good. Yeah, this is a little bit more sort of close to home to me. And I guess firstly we should probably touch upon Reading's game with Southampton Women. Reading having the game being abandoned due to an injury to a wedding. I'm going to avoid Jonathan Ross on you, a Reading player. So yes, on behalf of everyone involved in Awful Wofo, we wish her all the best in the recovery, and hopefully the game can get replayed in the near future. But this is a really good division, obviously. So we touch on AFC Portchester that are going to be thinking, right, we've got this, we've got these games in hand, we've got a bit of money in hand, they've brought in a lot of big names that have played National League football, especially Becky Bath is a massive coup for them, formerly of AFC Bournemouth and AFC Wimbledon. She's been absolutely banging the goals in for them, so they will need to be making up for lost time. And they've got their work cut out for them if they want to try and catch up with Wanderers, given that they've already dropped a few points. But with the quality that they've got, I would be backing them to slowly clawing their way through. I completely imagine by the time we look at this in March, when hopefully these games have again evened themselves out a little bit, they will be in the top two. I think when they take on Wycombe Wanderers, it's going to be that big 6-pointer. But the other thing about this division is you've got Winchester City Flyers, you've got Southampton Women, you've got Beaconsfield that can put on a good performance on their day and could quite easily upset AFC Portchester. If my memory serves me correct, I think Southampton Women, Sirens, were actually leading for sort of a large period against Portchester, but they've got a couple of cheat codes that can go in and grab goals from anywhere. So this Tier 5 is just the standards of the teams are just really rising. I see a lot of parallels to where the 4th tier was maybe 3 years ago, with the quality really, really increasing throughout the division. A lot of games lost due to weather, which will frustrate a lot of the clubs, but hopefully as we start to hit the end of February and March, we'll start to see a lot of these games flying. We'll be flying through the fixtures, and at that point it'll be a really exciting league to watch, because I think this is the one where I think there's a lot could happen, and it's be very difficult to call, because if you're speaking to anyone from Southampton Women or Winchester City Flyers, they'll probably turn around and say, well, actually, we're good value. We're not out of it. And they very much aren't. So, and it'd be really good for the division if we can see these sorts of Winchester, Southampton and Beaconsfield taking points off the likes of Portchester and Wycombe. Not only will it help the title race, but it will just make that top 5 battle really, really interesting. So this is a really good, fun division.
Certainly is. And a shout out to Badshot Lee as well, because Badshot and Woodley were both fighting it out to see which team would stay bottom due to goal difference. But Badshot Lee let in 3 points, which is incredible for them and puts them just above that dotted line. So great news there. Stu, we're not going to kick you off the channel. That wouldn't happen. Feel free to hang about if you need to or want to, but you are now free to drop at any time you need to. Should you so desire. But what we will do now is nip over to Gareth, who can talk us through oh crikey, which one am I going to pick? That one, there we go, which is of course the Northwest Women's Regional League, and Mancunian Unity back on top.
Yeah, this is a couple of things about this league. First of all, in general, that absolutely mad, and that is having 16 games played before Christmas. That's craziness. In both a good and a bad sense. Because this league could be wrapped up by the end of February, and that's mad. Or there's going to be huge gaps between games when teams go out of the League Cup. But yeah, I think we've got a real sense now of where teams are at, and kind of which teams are struggling. We're halfway through the season, and Fleetwood are 17 points adrift. So I think we can, with a certain degree of confidence, put a pin in that. And I think, Fleetwood now need to start thinking about next season. What do they need to do next season in order to progress? Like we've mentioned before on the show, it's going to have a big note for them because they currently have a reserves team in Tier 6 and a development side in Tier 7. So it's going to mean a complete shift of all 3 teams downwards, assuming that they keep all 3 sides on for next year. I hope they do. You imagine with a 14-point deficit and 7 games to play that Kerrs and Ashton are also done, particularly with that negative 60 goal difference. I suspect that they're done. Bolton still have a chance, but they're going to need to pick up some points and some wins in order to turn that around. So I think, we're very much becoming three leagues. I think we've got the top two are kind of away from the rest of the chasing pack, and then everybody else between sort of West Didsbury in third and Tranmere Rovers in ninth are safe and secure enough. If not mathematically, then they don't need to do an awful lot in January. I don't think in terms of picking up some wins to secure that spot. It's down now to Unity and Fylde. Now, I know ordinarily I would say that I'd much prefer to have points on the board than games in hand. But with Unity only a point clear, having played 2 games more, you would suspect Fylde will take that position back. Obviously, the sides have to play each other again, so that's a massive 6-pointer. If Unity can win that, then it really does put pressure on Fylde to keep going. You suspect that one of those sides is going to win the division, and then the other side is currently in a really good position in terms of points per game to also be promoted. Both sides also have fantastic goal differences. If they are similar on points per game, then it would end up being that it's the goal difference that ends them up. To remind people, there are 8 regional league Premier divisions, and the top 2 sides that finish second with points per game will go up. Obviously, this is a division with 12. In the Midlands, there's a division with 9. If it was just normal points, that would be unfair, given that some leagues will play more games than others. So points per game, and the top 2 sides in the country will go up. So you are competing against another 7 other clubs. I suspect, though, if you're looking at about 2.7 or 2.8 points per game, as Fylde would currently be, that would be good enough to go up, or at least be very, very much there or thereabouts. So yeah, for Unity and Fylde, it's important that they keep going, they don't ease off, and don't kind of become complacent, and they do make sure they can go up. For sides like West Didsbury down to Tranmere, it's going to be a case of seeing what you can achieve, because that is super, super close. There's 7 points separate third from 8th. 4 points separate third from 6th. So it's super, super close, and a really, really interesting, really tight league. And I'm interested to see how this shakes out. Who ends up going up? Who ends up kind of being the best of the rest in this division? That I would not like to call at all. I do have a suspicion it'll end up being Bolton, just based on the quality in the teams, but I wouldn't like to put my house on it. But yeah, I think we are as solid as we can be with some of those relegation spots, and with Bolton probably the last side of the real chance of putting something together. But they need a really strong January, otherwise it may be curtains for them soon too.
I would agree. Sorry if you were distracted at all by me moving around my laptop there. I had actually written down from only a week or so ago who was what the points per game were for the teams in runners-up positions, and as you would expect, I can't find that piece of paper, so I'm a little bit disappointed. I wonder if it's under the laptop, but there we go. Stu, I believe you have something you want to say.
I do just have to dash off, unfortunately. So just a happy Christmas and New Year to everyone involved, and everyone that's taken the time to watch. And I hope you all have a nice little break from football, because as much as I love it, I'm looking forward to closing the laptop for 2 weeks as of midday on Monday, once we've got everything written up. So all the best to all of you, and keep promoting these divisions, because they're fantastic. And if you can like and share and subscribe to the show, let's do it. We don't really do that enough, do we?
No, we don't shout it out too much. No, we try and go by word of mouth. But same to you. Merry Christmas, and thank you for your efforts this year too. So yeah, there we go. That's Stu. Thank you very much. Good night to you. And we are left just gathering myself to run through the last couple. With a bit of luck, I might have just learned something new on the old laptop. Have we got a new league just put up there now? I believe we do, which will make life a little bit easier rather than have to keep knocking up. Look at that. Oh, you would have known that the button that said share this tab instead would be quite so helpful. Well, there we go. This is the London South East, of course, as I just said. And a big one for them as well. Brentford moving to the top of the division, 3 points clear of Saltdean United, who have got the 2 games in hand. So they will definitely be the happier, I think, of the 2 sides, knowing they've got those points. But I think this is an occasion where you would look at what Gareth says there about having the points on the board, because they have drawn, they have lost. So anything could happen there. But their goal difference, very, very good. And that would indicate that they are going to get at least 3 of those potential 6 points. Dartford, the big ones down there, they've had games called off, and obviously their FA Cup run will have resulted in a few games being moved around. They're on 21 points at the moment, only 7 off of top spot. And of course, that is very catchable as they have 4 games in hand, a potential 12 points. Interestingly, it's the same sort of situation Fulham were in last season, where they were in the middle of the table, having not played as many games as the rest of them. They went on to actually romp the league. So you just never know. Maybe Dartford will go on to do that as well. Ebbsfleet United, another side with a lot of games in hand. But I think at the moment they need a little bit more than just games in hand, and they need points, as they are currently on -2 because they have been deducted points. 9 losses, not looking great for them, and certainly they look as though they may be one of the 2 sides to go down. New Haven are just about there on the edge of Sport London, but again, very, very tricky unless they can get the wins and the points. So big things going on there in the London and South East. But yeah, anybody could win that. Really big. The top 5-6 sides really still in with a shout, and then the bottom 7, bottom 7 to 9th, sort of sitting there reasonably pretty, not really looking over their shoulders too much. And of course, the bottom 3 scrapping for those final positions. Gareth, we'll throw it back over to you for the Northeast Regional Premier Division. And this one, not a huge number of games played. Again, very, very patchy. But Bradford City looking really good value for this one.
Yeah, I think, I think it's still relatively early form. Some of the sides have only played a quarter of their games, others on half. So there is still a lot of football to be played. But, Bradford with a 100% record, you would back them now, I think, to go and do one better than they did last year. They pushed Chester Street all the way, and they've come into it this season and making sure that they don't make any mistakes whatsoever in terms of pushing on and looking for that promotion spot. When you look at some of the other challenges, it's tricky to kind of judge who's going to be there or thereabouts based on just how scatty the amount of games teams have played is. Apologies, just moving. I imagine that Spennymoor and Alnwick Town have probably dropped too many points now to really be with the shout of promotion. But then you look at Thornaby, who have played 3 games fewer and are 4 points behind, so they can make a run and go up into second place. You look at Pontyland, have only played 5 games, and could they put a run of games together? They've got 4 games in hand. That's 12 points. They could be well clear. So I think there's an awful lot to play for still with this league. I think Bradford are putting a real stamp on the title charge, and you imagine if they have a really strong January in amongst the county cup games and whatnot, then they can be sort of starting to dream, I think, of getting back to the National League where they were a couple of seasons ago. For Wallsend, they had a strong FA Cup run, but it is looking tricky for them, sat on 7 games played, 7 games lost. However, because of Sunderland West End having 3 points deducted, it does not mean that they are dead and buried just yet. So, still to play for. Both of those sides will be looking to try and put some wins together in January. Obviously, everybody will be. But those 2 sides, especially given the the kind of precarious situation they find themselves in, sort of just above the trapdoor. You suspect that Brunsmere are probably okay, unless there is either Wallsend or Sunderland could bring in a good player that can start to turn the tide for them. You suspect some changes will have to be made if they're going to try and catch Brunsmere, but yeah, I would suspect that Bradford are looking good for the title. And I suspect that Sunderland, West End or Wallsend are probably the two sides that will be scrapping it out for the drop. But second place, I think absolutely all to play for. Where this will be next time we get around to looking at it, how things will shake out, who knows? But yeah, it will certainly be interesting to see. It is just madness that you have teams on 5 and 6 and some teams on 10. How teams end up with 5 games more than others, I do not know. I suspect the weather and cup competitions has played some role in that for sure. But yeah, we have a league where one team has played 16 and a league where one team has played 5.
It's mad. Absolutely mad. I think this league was one of the ones which was towards the bottom, I think, with regards to points per game. Obviously, as you look at it there, that's about 1.8-ish maybe that they've got there. So it's not looking wonderful for Spennymoor. But of course, if Thornaby can, as you say, get a little run together and put themselves in second or whatever, it would certainly change things about a little bit there. Right, the final league to look at, and it is the Eastern region. And I get the chance to blow the trumpet for my side a little bit here, because what a year it has been for Stevenage. They've gone the entire calendar year without losing a game in this league. That's all the way from January all the way through to December. All in all, 37 games played, 31 games won, 3 games drawn, 3 games lost, and that includes every competition. The 3 games that were lost were, of course, Norwich City in the FA Cup this year, and then last season losing the League Cup and County Cup final. So some fantastic results for Stevenage this season. And of course, they managed to usurp Royston for second place in the league, thanks to that run. Of course, second place didn't get you anything last year, but this year, as we've said, it possibly could do. Now, Royston, I think, were around about 3rd or 4th out of the 8 leagues on the points per game. So it would be very interesting to see whereabouts that lands as we are at the minute. But this league, relatively good in terms of games played. You've got Dussindale and Hellersdon on 16. They've played the most. They've only got 6 games left to play, which is quite something. It's going to be quite a empty end of season for them, you would think, whereas the rest of the teams are pretty much there on 12 to 14 and looking quite equal. Royston and Stevenage looking like the 2 teams that will be fighting out, although Wroxham are outside bets on that. Dussindale, having played so many more than the teams above them, probably unlikely to be challenging anywhere near the top, but a very good position for them considering they were only promoted a couple of seasons ago. Big games to come. Stevenage and Royston, I think, is the penultimate game of the season as it stands, so that could have just immense ramifications depending on where that ends up. Hutton and Enfield both perilously close to looking like being the sides that will drop down. Bowes and Pitsea probably the closest and most likely to be caught, if at all, but they've had such a good season themselves in terms of goals scored and the way in which they're playing. You would have to think that with Evie Clark being on their side, they've probably got the firepower to stay up. So I would imagine it's Enfield and Hutton to go down, and then you've got 1 from 3 really for the title. So that will be incredibly interesting to watch moving into next season. There we go. Well, we've managed to do it just over an hour. Absolutely nailed it. Great work, Gaza. We've done the entire FA Cup in terms of the league teams. There will be fewer conversations to have when we look at that one on around about the 20th of January. Obviously, we'll be looking to return next year with some tier 4 and then tier 5 and then probably the FA Cup roundup to go. That will probably be the first 3 shows of the year. All it's left really for me to say, Gareth, is a massive thank you to you as well.
No, thank you very much.
Much appreciated to have had you. 50 shows, Gareth. Can you believe it? We were there for the first one. Obviously, we're missing John Foster from the OGs, from being able to run through it all. But 50 episodes of trying to really push lower league football. How do you feel it's gone?
I think it's fun. I really enjoy doing it. I think it's a great way of shining a light on some of those lower leagues. I think we figured the format out quite nicely now. Took us a few episodes to sort of figure that out. We've had some fantastic guests on in those 50 episodes coming in. So thank you to everyone that has been on, and it's been fantastic. And obviously the channel as a wider entity came second to the main All for United at the FCAs. Who knows? Maybe next year we'll usurp Connor, and he can pick up the award for us, eh?
Yeah, he'd be gutted. He'd be happy to pick up that, but he'd be gutted to be overtaken. I will say nothing on that because I'm putting it down to the fact that I didn't manifest it, that it happened. So yes, we'll keep that one very much under the hat. But superb. Cheers to John. He's probably in his work somewhere, stuck in pigs and blankets and all that sort of stuff. But a huge thank you to him as well. 50 episodes in the bank. Here's
that is one episode for every single club that John Foster supports in the Women's Pyramid.
It's unbelievable. And we'll get the chance to mention them all again in the next 50. So there we go. Thank you very much. Take care. Merry Christmas to you all. We will see you next year.